All right, how's everyone doing? I am Rich CELENZA. Thanks for checking out the Rich CELENZA show. So I saw this quote, and it said, if you don't program your mind, it will be programmed for you. And I really thought that was quite interesting because a lot of times on my podcast, I talk about how we were programmed when we were younger. But I don't a lot of times talk about how people don't realize they were programmed even throughout high school, say, maybe if they went to college. Throughout their 20s, it could be their 30s, their 40s. I think we're constantly being programmed. We just don't realize it. And I think that's one thing people just don't want to acknowledge or admit. And if you're anyone who's kind of grew up in, it could be a religious household, a political household, or maybe you were raised by immigrants, or you were raised by just maybe two different types of parents that had, opposite kind of perspectives on how, or again, nationalities or whatever, not race, nationalities, you kind of understand, the complications of programming sometimes, especially if, say, one mother was, or your mother's Catholic, say, and your father's Jewish, or whatever the case may be. Even, one being, say, Irish, one being Italian, even, there could be some differences, obviously, or one even being black, one's white, however the hell you want to go about it. We all have different ways about going through things, And I do think when we have kids, no matter what anyone says, they're kind of, you want them to be little clone versions of yourself to a certain degree. I'm not saying you want them to be exactly who you are, but you want a lot of times for them to take on the values that you have because you think they're right. Or you may be somebody who, wants kind of a different upbringing that you had. Maybe it was not too good. So you want to raise your kids in an entirely different environment, right? It could be a different location. It may not, it may be different people, just different lifestyle. And I kind of was like that. I was kind of raised in the bar nightclub business with my father. And then my mother was very religious. So I kind of raised my kids on the opposite end of the spectrum of that, minus the religion. My kids did go to a private Catholic school. And one of the reasons was mainly because of the area I was in, downtown Orlando. I didn't, at that time, like the public school system. I didn't have access to the better school, is what I should say. So I sent them to a private school. But I always made sure that they understood that, they still understand this, that religion is their thing to decide on. I never, I went to a Catholic high school, graduated from one. I definitely was not programming my children, even though they were going to that school. And I know they were programming to a certain degree. And when they got home, I'm not saying I unprogrammed them, but I wanted them to understand that I was on their side regardless of what they believed. I did like them having the option of learning about religion. But again, that did not mean that they had to believe in religion or that they had to follow everything they were doing, even though I understand they had to go to communion and all these type of things. And I think at times they liked it and at other times they didn't. I was open enough to discuss those things. But as they got older, like a lot of people, or like our kids or whoever gets older, the one thing I've tried to do, back to me with the bar and nightclub business, my kids never seen me, I never really had any alcohol in the house. I never let anybody smoke in the house. I never went to, my mother loved going to a lot of religious, obviously events and things, which is wonderful. And my kids weren't obviously in a bar or nightclub by any means. And then when they were a little older, my father still owned a vending business and he got in a pinch and he needed help. So I had to take them and I had to take them inside a bar with me. And they were like 10 or 11 and they were shocked because people were smoking and drinking and it was so loud. And they're like, where are we? Is this a bad neighborhood? And it was just really funny. And I was thinking, oh my God, they thought it was bad. When I grew up, I thought it was kind of fun. I mean, sometimes it was aggravating, but I'm thinking this is what I was, a part of. And I loved being a part of that, but now they had no idea about that was not only somewhere they just visited for, say, 10, 15 minutes. I used to live in that. It was funny to say, wow, I kind of raised my kids maybe I went too far, a little bit when you make them, it's almost you're holding on to the innocence with them maybe too long. Maybe they had too much Disney, maybe too much SeaWorld, too much Universal Studios. I started to honestly think that, like, I want them to also be, or kind of understand the world is not always living in Orlando, Florida as a professional tourist. Life isn't always a fantasy. But I wanted to hold on to their innocence. I think like a lot of us, or wanted my kids to hold on to their innocence for as long as they could. And, with the programming thing, again, I think being self-aware That's one thing I've been pretty good throughout my life. And I know exactly, even when I'm behaving like an asshole, I know I'm behaving like an asshole. I know when I'm not paying attention. I'm pretty good at that. I know when I'm being a jerk. I know when I'm being, grateful. I kind of know what's going on. And I don't think a lot of other people do. And I also have realized throughout my life, acknowledging I'm wrong, and that a lot of the way I've even programmed myself personally. When I traveled a lot, I used to just kind of reprogram my brain because I was constantly either writing, studying, or doing something. So I kind of went through this period where really I wanted to reprogram myself to figure out what the hell's going on. Why do I feel the way I feel? Why do I act the way I act? Why do I talk the way I talk? Why do I do the things I do? And why do I keep doing them? Things that benefited me, things that don't, acknowledging maybe that I spend way too much money eating out or living a certain lifestyle. Maybe it was too fashion driven. And then at other times I was wondering why I all of a sudden hated high fashion. I went through these periods where I wanted to be always kind of dressed up, and then other times where I only wanted to be casual. And I was trying to figure out, what do I burn myself out? Same with like going to maybe certain restaurants if I like them. Why am I going so much? Or why am I only eating certain types of foods all the time? Why am I not open-minded enough? Why do I, if you ever talked politics with me, I had no interest whatsoever, and people even knew that. Even with religion or whatever it was, I can shut people down, and they can tell really quickly that I lose interest in certain things, and kind of just thinking, why am I disrespectful towards this group of people and not this group? Why do I like these things and despise this? So maybe you're somebody like that too, that gets, I think a lot of people, they get confused, I think, a lot of times. And we get caught, set in our ways. And, you can see this on social media, and I'm that way too. I definitely think we have different belief, we have a certain belief, which is great. Whatever works for you, but for some reason we are a lot of times willing to destroy the other side of things that doesn't agree with what we're agreeing with, or what we believe, I should say. Just really pay attention to that, I think, because I'm going to kind of say this. I think people don't realize at certain ages, I kind of mentioned it earlier, that at any age you can be programmed. And a lot of times you may be being programmed by something that's not always beneficial. And that can even be in a relationship. You may be dating somebody and you don't even realize it, but say they party a lot. I'll just use, for example, they drink. Just say drinking. Let's take it very casual. Like, you may have not been a big drinker. You just had a casual drink once in a while. You start dating somebody who does like to drink, and before you know it, you're having more drinks before you know it. Let's say you're an alcoholic. And I'm not even saying it's a problem, but it could be affecting your health. And it's not saying that you're being programmed to be an alcoholic, but if you look at your lifestyle, something there is programming you now to do something that's really not maybe that healthy for you. And that could be even financially. Again, you could be dating somebody, a man or a woman, I don't care who it is. You start dating somebody and they want to spend more and more money. Before you know it, you're kind of being programmed to shop more, maybe eat out a lot more, maybe travel more, things you can't afford. And again, I'm not saying they have control of you as far as like a programming like saying, like it's not like like you're learning a language here. You're not being programmed like that, but you are changing your lifestyle. And before you know it, somebody can, or you can even do it yourself, program against something that's not beneficial. Maybe really consider programming yourself just independently and figuring things out for yourself a lot of times. Because I think a lot of us, when we're kind of programming ourselves, I should say, or others are, let's put it this way, a lot of times I see a lot of people become parents. And it's almost like they reprogram themselves, which I get too. I kind of did that. I lived an extreme lifestyle of nightclubs and hanging in bars, restaurants, gentlemen clubs. And believe me, I wasn't an alcoholic or drug addict by any means. I just was involved with that lifestyle. And believe me, I liked it. And then all of a sudden I got married and I went cold turkey. And I said, no, this is it. I just want to be with my daughters, my wife or whatever at that point in time, my ex-wife, and just said, this is the lifestyle I want. But I'm going to say after a while, I went too cold turkey, I think. I became, I think, very boring, and I became a Mr. Mom. And for me, I despised being a Mr. Mom. I love being a dad. There's a big difference for me. And I wouldn't take back anything I did in my past. I loved everything I kind of did, but it was kind of how more or less people perceived me and then kind of how I perceived myself after a while. And I kind of reprogrammed myself to be something else. And I went, I think, maybe too far the other way. Sometimes, you got to find the middle. Sometimes it's one extreme, you go one way, or an extreme another. But kind of finding the middle. So again, I was just saying, I even, a lot of people reprogram themselves in thinking that, it's going to always be better. And it could be picking even a political side. It could be, again, a religion. It can be dating somebody. Just really pay attention. How it goes may not be beneficial, is what I should say. Other times, it may be very beneficial. So maybe reprogramming and thinking things through and maybe changing a lot of things, I should say, at the end here can definitely be something that is lacking in your life because, again, a lot of us get set in our ways. And a lot of us aren't, I can't say me, but a lot of people are very unhappy with the way their life went or is going, but they're not willing to change anything. And maybe part of that problem is your programming. And you can't always blame, I'm kind of exhausted, people blaming their parents, grandparents, siblings, friends, whatever, like blaming their past for the way they were programmed. You understand, you can reprogram yourself. You can reprogram yourself to learn a new language. You can reprogram your lifestyle in general. It just takes time a lot of times, but you can do it. I'm just telling you. All right, so I'm going to wrap it up there. That's really it. Take care, and if you want to check out my website, richcholenza.com.